This is Nathan Wright, and you are listening to the Studio Success Formula Podcast.
Welcome to the Studio Success Formula Podcast, the business school for dance studio owners. And now for your host, Clint Salter.
Hey there, studio owners. It's Clint Salter from Studio Success Formula, and thank you for joining us. Our guest today started his career as a performer in musicals like The Rocky Horror Show, Jesus Christ Superstar, Pippin and Mamma Mia, before shifting into the space of choreography. Today, he's working across the globe, choreographing large-scale events, including many of the Summer and Winter Olympics, as well as musicals like Guys and Dolls, Avenue Q, and The Tailor-Made Man. He's passionate about student development, hence why I wanted to get him on the show. Please welcome our guest, Mr. Nathan Wright. Hello, Nathan.
Hello, Clint.
Great to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Now, Nathan, you grew up in Queensland, Australia, which is where you learnt how to dance. What qualities did your dance teachers have that greatly impacted you as a person and as a performer?
That's a really fantastic question, because I constantly look back now, like I'm now in my 30s, and I look back on everything I do, and it was such, which I didn't realise at the time, it was such an important foundation that I learned at Conroy's in Brisbane growing up. The really brilliant thing about them is they are there to guide you, to support you, and to lead you in what they think is the best path for you. And they're a really serious school about performing, but they also, you cover exam work, you do everything. But one of the brilliant things is they just take such, they're so passionate about what you do because that's what they love. And they're really supportive, and they are still some of my dearest friends. And one of my main teachers, Rochelle Conroy, she actually works with me now on all these large-scale events all around the world. So it's kind of bizarre how it's kind of come back, and now I get the opportunity to offer her something wonderful as she did to me as I grew up.
Yeah, sure. And so do you think it's about, that sense of, it sounds like you're a bit of a family. I mean, do you think that's an important aspect of a dance studio, that they are like this support network, nurturing kind of family that you can, go to for advice and all that sort of stuff? I mean, is that what it's about?
Look, that's one of the main factors, but that's just me as a person. I prefer to be surrounded by a place that is really caring and nurturing, and not just interested in taking your money and just getting you through the door. They actually invest in you, and that's what I loved about them, but I didn't realise that at the time. But they just taught me the basic foundations of everything that I still use today, from simple things about being punctual to respect of how hard you work in class or when you're teaching or when I'm choreographing. I learned all of that growing up, and it was kind of drilled into me without me knowing. But the family aspect is extremely important, because when you're young, and when I was at dancing more than I was with my actual family. So you want to be with people that care about you and want to give you that same love and support as your family do. And that's the one thing that I think makes my growing up and my training really special, I think, compared to others, because they actually really cared about me.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think it's hard, though, for studio owners? We work with studio owners every day, and we constantly, get them saying, where's that line? Where is that line that you can kind of step over when it's all about the studio and that's your entire life? What about, how can I have a life outside of that? I mean, do you have any advice for studio owners around that, getting kind of the balance, if you would call it that?
I think if I could do that, I think I could probably retire tomorrow. It's bizarre, because I think any major successful studio, that is their life. And I don't know how they balance it. And I think what is important, though, is to find a balance, because otherwise, if you dedicate all your time to a studio, you've got, if you want family or you want to travel, it's a really delicate line. And I have my hats off to every single person that runs a really successful studio, because I don't know how they make it look so easy. And I'm sure it is far from easy. But that is one thing I wish I knew the answer to. But I think if I owned a studio, I would be as passionate as I am now as I was back then. And I think I would struggle of trying to find that balance. But it is a really fine line.
Yeah, it is. And I'm exactly with you on the amount of respect I have for these people that are giving continually to their students and their dance families.
And when you're really young, you don't really realise it. It's not until you get older, and I think you get out into the big wide world, and if you're trying for a career in this industry, that's when I realised, oh my God, I was so lucky to have what I had and to be trained the way I was trained. But I didn't realise it at the time, and I'm very close friends with the studio owners of Conroy's, and they run a very successful studio in Brisbane. But it takes up a lot of their lives, and it is a really fine balance of still having a life plus running a very successful business. But I think that's what comes with running a really successful business.
Exactly. Whether you're in dance or you're running a law firm or an accountancy firm, I think, being an entrepreneur and, you run your own business as a choreographer. And I think that it's very different to sit at a desk and work a 9-to-5 job.
Of course it is. Absolutely is.
Yeah, and so we've talked about teachers. I'd love to know your thoughts on, how teachers can be teaching their students in class to better prepare them for a career in the entertainment industry. And I think I want to hear your thoughts both around in terms of their performance skills, but also around their mindset.
I think the most important thing is things have really changed since I started dancing back in, the 80s. Oh, it makes me sound so old. The ability has changed. The level of talent has changed. And that to me is a success of what is coming up in our industry, because I find more and more people that I audition, whether it's in Australia, whether it's in London, they're coming in with more and more skills than back in when I was younger. I didn't have the options to do that many things, but things are changing. So I feel the world of dance is constantly evolving for the younger generation. And I think that's a really important thing. And I think what I tell people is what the most important thing when you are looking for a career in the industry is to know your strengths. And I think that's a really important thing with any great studio is you're not great at everything. You are great at certain things. And I think it's really great to focus on what you have a really good shot at extending that into a professional career. I think the industry is so tough and there's so much talent out there. I think the most important thing growing up and to learn from a studio is respect, ability, technique, dedication, and passion. And I think I find I teach everything in a really positive way. That doesn't mean in any way I'm a pushover or anything like that, but nowadays, I find you get the best out of someone when you're encouraging and when you're positive and you're driving them towards something that I think is achievable. What I don't agree with is when people are being pushed for something that they're obviously not right for, or it's not for them, or it's not their strength, because then I feel it builds people up to a level of expecting something, and when that doesn't come through, then they question everything and they don't understand why. And I think that's a really delicate fine line for all studios when they are raising new talent to make a break into the professional career.
Do you think that's around, a bit of a reality check? Because there are studio owners, and teachers out there who do exactly that. They push and they do, more. They get the students doing more and more classes. Probably knowing that their studio isn't, going to have a career or won't make it in that, particular area of the entertainment industry, but they keep on going. So they come along to an audition after audition audition, don't get anything, really disappointed. And in a way, it kind of sets them up to fail, if that makes sense.
No, look, I totally agree with you. It's just such a fine line because you want everyone to succeed. You want everyone that has come to you that you've trained. Of course you want them to be successful because then it says a lot about you but at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, someone comes in with talent regardless. And that either grows with them as they, train and grow and, keep trying to benefit their career. But, in some cases that it's just not there. And no matter how many classes they do, it's just not for them. And it's about being realistic. And I'm not saying that in any way are you meant to set out to break people's dreams or anything like that. But I think when it comes to that real fine point I think around 16, 17, when students are thinking, well, should I go into a full-time course? Should I move state? Should I try different training? I think that is a really important time in someone's life when I think honesty is the best way forward. And that to me says good leadership within the studio, because you want someone to say, yes, I think it is worth you moving to Sydney to try this because you can do this and this and this and this. Or if you want to extend your skills more, I think these full-time courses will best suit you. But then I think if there's people that that are not going to make a career in dance, I think it's really important to also express that to them as well, in a way of, I don't think this is the best thing for you to do, and I'm saying this because of this, this, and this. I think that also says a lot about a place, because at the end of the day, that is the point when you are giving belief in someone at that really vulnerable age of whether they're going to go forward or not. And if you constantly just tell everyone that they're great, they're great, they're great, all these people are going on and they're not getting anywhere, and they're not getting through any auditions, and they can't understand why, because all they've been told this whole time is you're brilliant.
I think that's excellent advice.
I'm not saying that to be harsh in any way, but I think that's a really important thing that we can learn as we go older, is just to be really honest in a positive way. There are other things that they can do within the industry, but this professional choice of career, they're hard as it is being, trying to work all the time. It's really hard to sustain a constant career. And that's with people that are absolutely insanely talented. I think the honesty thing is a really important thing at that point when people are looking to further their skills interstate, etc., etc.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Now, we've talked about kind of you auditioning lots of people. So I'd love to know, you audition thousands of people, and what is it that really separates the people that get the job versus those who don't? Now, I know it's specific on the type of role that you're looking for, but what kind of patterns or qualities have you kind of seen in those people that you're continually employing versus the ones that, don't get the job?
Oh, there's quite a few things. The first thing for me is obviously the correct style for the show, because every show has a different style as far as I'm concerned, and some people have that style and some people don't. I look for people that listen. In all auditions that I take and any choreography that I create for any audition, I set it up in a way. Well, it's not that I lay traps, but I lay really specific points throughout the choreography that I'm really clear about when I teach. And I will say, these are the things I'm looking for. And at this point, and this point, and this point, I want this, this, and this. And that straight away clears out half the people in the room. Because some people come into the room and they're just so keen to impress. Of course you are. But people get so carried away that they think they're just going for it, but they're actually missing all the detail that the choreographer has been really clear about explaining. Because that to me says that that person's going to listen in rehearsals. They're going to understand what I want. They react really quickly to any kind of correction I give. And that's a really important thing to me, is how well people listen. Also for me, I look for a uniqueness, people that just have something special. And those people, they just stand out, and they just do, because they have something wonderful within them. And that's why, there's certain people that will constantly go from job to job to job, because they've built up such a reputation because of how unique they are, or they might offer a certain level of skills that not many people have. And one of my biggest things is personality, because it's all well and good at the end of the day to cast the best people in the world in a show, but the most important quality for me is what people are like off stage. Because if you're going to put people in a musical together for a year, you can't force everyone to get along, but I think it's really important that you try to create a really positive environment. Of course, what we do is really hard, 8 shows a week, constantly. It's the same show every night.
Yeah, and living and literally, like, you create this bond. I saw it with Jersey Boys. The team creates this bond so quickly. I mean, you're around each other 24 hours a day, basically.
Yeah, it is like another family. And I think today, with the amount of talent that is out there, for me, and this is just me personally, if I have two people in the room and one is incredible and one is nearly as incredible, but the nearly incredible one, I know from other people that they have this incredible work ethic and they're amazing backstage and they're really polite to the dressers and the crew, I would take them over anyone that is next to them that might be brilliant, but they're annoying to work with, they always call in sick. I will always cast someone that has as many offstage skills as they do on stage. I think that's a really important quality.
Yeah, and I think obviously that's important if you want, sustain a career in the industry as well.
Well, especially now with social media, and there's nothing much that you can do that you will not hear about. And I think that was different to 15, 20 years ago. It was very different. But now, because everyone is connected throughout the world, it's so easy to text and a text, do you know this person? What are they like? And that's how it all starts. So that's why I think it's really important that when you go into the world, and the one thing that I was taught was you just respect. You might not like that part of the choreography, or you might not agree with that, but at the end of the day, you are there to create someone's vision. So you are there to do as you're told and to work really hard. And those qualities, to me, are really important in audition.
Yeah, excellent. No, I love it. It's great. Now, I want to move to you for a moment because I think, from the dealings I've had with you, that you're probably one of the hardest working people in the industry. So I'd love to know, what qualities do you believe that contribute to you having a successful career, and how you've been able to, be a well-employed performer and shift into now being an in-demand choreographer? I mean, what are those qualities that you have as a businessman, I guess, that have been able to have you sustain such a great career?
That is the hardest question I have ever been asked. To be really honest, and I'm being really honest, I am surprised every time I get asked to do anything next, which is, I suppose, a really bizarre answer. But I just get so flattered that people think of me, I just can't believe it. And I treat every job as if it was my last job, because you never know if it is going to be your last job. And to me, what I was taught is you're only as good as your last piece of work. And I'm now in a position where I can make choices and choose things that I personally really want to do, that I know that I can actually make a difference to that piece of work or that show. So, but I've worked really hard for that. But in getting to that position, and getting back to your original question, I don't know, I think I'm a really collaborative person. I don't believe I have the best ideas about everything, and that's why I think it's so wonderful about a creative team. And I love to collaborate with people that are passionate, and I'm extremely passionate about what I do, sometimes probably too passionate, but I would rather it be that way than the other way. And I try to choose pieces that I really care about and try to do the best job I can. Everything I do, I create everything original. There is nothing ever that I rework, rehash from anything, because everything that I create is specific for that show. And I want it to be that way. And I think that's, especially being in London, every job that I've received in London the past 2 years has led from the job before, that people have gone to the theatre and seen. And that's how, for me in London, how my work has grown since I've been here. So I would have to say I think it's just how much I invest into what I do. And I'm also in that same position with a studio owner. How do you balance that really fine line between absolute obsession for my passion that I love, and also normality and family and friends? And, I think that thing still carries on regardless into the industry, no matter which kind of place you're in. How much success is enough success?
Exactly. And when is it time to kind of, switch the dial a bit and go, okay, you know what, I need to focus on this area of my life. And, health is a big one of those for many studio owners who say, Clint, I don't have time to, exercise, or I'd love to meditate, but I just don't have time, or I'm putting the wrong things into my body because I finish teaching at 9:30 and go through the drive-through at McDonald's.
Yeah.
And so I think it's that continually, I always suggest, every 90 days you have kind of a recap of the last 90 days, and you look at those the 8 different areas in your life to kind of go, okay, that was good, kind of neglected that, and do it that way. I think it's important that we check in.
Oh, you have to, because otherwise you can just get carried away. And when the work stops, you're absolutely stuck, because you're like, what happened? What's going on? So that's one thing that I have brought change into my life in the past few years is, yes, Nathan, you can take on as much work as you possibly can, but at the end of the day, the work isn't going to tuck me in at night and, give me that support that I will only get from my family and my friends. So I have really worked hard on trying to find a balance. I'm nowhere near it, but I've definitely made myself aware of it.
Yeah, and that's the first step, I think, that awareness.
Yeah.
How important, Nathan, are the relationships? So you've talked about going from, that job got you that job. I mean, do you network? How do you nurture the relationships that you make, and have relationships played a big part in terms of your success in your career?
I think I'm a terrible networker. I really do. I find it really hard to talk about myself in any aspect. And I don't know if that's how I was taught growing up either. It's like, you just be quiet, you do as you're told, you do, can you ride a horse? Yes, I can. Even if I think I've probably carried that on too much. Well, the relationships I build are real. And if I work with the director again, it's because we built a real relationship. Not every relationship is going to work. Not every relationship with the director is going to be the relationship. I like to try and work with a lot of different directors because I like my work to be very eclectic. And I try to spread myself out there as much as I can because there is so much out there, and I used to only want to do one thing and one thing only. But I think then kind of moving overseas, it kind of opened my eyes, and I was like, oh, it's not about the success in this thing. It's about the overall success within me, that I feel happy that I'm being given all these different opportunities to create new work. So networking, I don't think I'm very good. I have a very good agent, which I think does all my networking for me. I don't know if I networked, if I would be in a different position. I don't know. But I do commend anyone that can do it, because I stand back and go, oh, I could never do that. But I do commend people that can.
Yeah, and I think it does provide some benefit to those people that, especially nowadays, as you said, as a dancer, it's highly competitive. I think it was probably competitive when you were dancing as well, but the talent, the amount of talent that is coming out of, I think, every country at the moment is insane.
Yes, it is. I'm so glad I'm not 12 and having to dance next to these people.
And the Stedford. Yeah, I know it's pretty crazy. But no, cool, awesome. Thank you for that. Now, I know that you're frequently asked to teach, jazz and musical theatre masterclasses, around the globe. What's your formula for creating an engaging and educational class, and how do you keep students energized and inspired?
Look, I think me as a person, I'm extremely giving when it comes to energy. I'm all about energy, and I'm all about creating a really great electricity in the room. I think what I have to offer people is interesting, and it comes from absolute experience. I'm not making it up. It's coming from everything that I have done as a performer and as a choreographer, and of all the places that I've travelled and all the places that I have worked with. And yes, it is very fascinating to people what I've done and all the different jobs I do. And I really focus on material that I have personally created, or I have been there alongside when it was created. So I can actually give people the in-depth reason of how this came about, why it's there, and this is what they look for, and this is what I look for when I'm doing this. That's kind of my formula. I'm very much about energy, and I'm very much about, inspiring people, because there's nothing more wonderful. I find when I was younger, when I would go to like a Brent Street, Kelly Abbey would teach me, or a Jason Coleman would teach me, and these people would come into the room, I would literally be starstruck. And they could just say so much, and I would soak it in like a sponge. And so that's one thing that I really loved when I was younger, and I thought if I'm ever in that opportunity to walk into a room and offer people my experience, then I really will. And I really try to just engage the whole time, and I really love it. I do them because I absolutely love it.
Yeah, and I think that's, what you're saying is that you can add a lot of value to the class. And, does self-belief come into it? Because I know there's amazing teachers out there, and they could be amazing teachers, and they're like, but I've got nothing to offer. Although they've had amazing experiences and they might have danced all over the globe, and, but do you think that self-belief plays a big part in it as well?
Look, I do, and I think some people are just really good at teaching. I don't think everyone is good at teaching, but I love people, and I love to inspire people. And I think that nowadays, to compete with the internet and television and to reality programs, I think if you can have someone walk into a room and inspire a group of people, that to me is the most inspiring thing on the planet. because it's there and it's in person, and they're actually engaged in what you're having to say. They're not on their phones. They're not texting, tweeting, Facebooking. They're in a room because they want to learn. And I think that says a lot about these days. And also, I think masterclasses, I don't know if they're as successful as they once were, because nowadays you can log onto the internet and YouTube anyone and watch stuff. I think that it's become such a global entity, the internet, in regards to dance, because it just allows you to watch everything you want. So I think when people come in and they can offer you something really wonderful, I think it's an incredible place to learn.
I think that nothing beats that live experience, but I hear from a lot of studio owners though, is like, my students aren't impressed when I bring people, in for master classes anymore, exactly for that reason that you're saying, is because they feel like everyone's accessible, through the internet. But I mean, nothing beats, getting in a classroom, sweating it out, and being with that person and learning from them.
And I think what's really, like, for them, for those kids that are saying, we can just watch the internet, but I think they're missing the point. Their teacher is paying probably a lot of money to bring someone in that they think is going to learn, that their students are going to learn from. I think that is, that's a really important respect thing. If someone's been brought in, especially at a studio, kids are so lucky, but because it happens all the time now, it just kind of becomes second nature, and they're kind of like, what's next? How are you going to better that? So that's why kids can turn to the internet and watch things all over the world and be inspired by that. But really, what you're saying is correct. Nothing is better than having someone there in the flesh. And they might watch stuff on the internet and might be great, but they might get that person in to teach for them one day, and they might be absolutely terrible.
Yeah, that's happened.
It does. It happens all the time, because, of course, people aren't going to post things about them that aren't good, that's not selling themselves in the best light. If someone can walk into a room and hold someone's attention for an hour and a half, and it's all done there in the flesh, that to me is a real skill.
Yeah, I agree. Now, I want to kind of talk about choreography, because there's a lot of teachers, studio owners out there that have amazing students who may not necessarily be the most amazing dancer in the world, but, they're the ones that are getting together little groups of people and they're choreographing routines and they're going into competitions for choreography. I mean, how would you say to a studio owner, how can they further develop and nurture that talent, and how can they help them and prepare them for potentially a career as a choreographer?
To be really honest, I think there's a really big market there that could be tapped into, because when you go to a studio, you go there to learn dance, and people just have this gene in them, I think, that just gives them this openness to their creative mind. And they exactly right. They might not be the best dancer in the world, but some of the best choreographers in the world are just the worst dancers. But they have this incredible vision, and they can turn what's in their mind onto people's bodies, and it can be mind-blowing. And I don't know how much of that is out there, really, in that sense of leadership in regards to younger kids that at a studio, how they develop that more, because you don't really go to classes at studios to learn how to choreograph. You go there to learn how to dance. That's a really good question, because that really wasn't certainly available when I was young at all. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to perform, but I knew I would always transition out of it, because there's nothing that I love more than actually creating something and watching it on someone else and watching kind of what's in my mind come to life. But I think leaving studios, I think, there's obviously a lot of open doors nowadays, I suppose, in regards to reality television, in regards to choreographing for TV shows, for like So You Think You Can Dance. That's an amazing platform for people to put themselves on, to try and submit them, to have their work, looked at, and for the possibility of it being on television. But other than that, it's actually a really good question.
Do you think that you have to, like, you had a career as a performer and you transitioned into, choreographing. Do you think that's the only path you can take to get into choreography, or do you know of people that have, somehow gotten into choreography but haven't had that kind of, the notches on the belt as being a performer?
I couldn't name anyone off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are people I'm sure there
Yeah,
were
it's
people that they
interesting.
are.
I've had that conversation a few times, and people are either you've got to get those runs on the board. You've got to do a couple of shows, and then you build up relationships and kind of be assistant. And
I just look back when I was doing shows, there wasn't really the opportunity for it. Really, I think you kind of went to the commercial dance world, or you went into the musical theatre world, and you would try and build up a bit of a reputation of a performer, and then you'd either keep that going and try and build for bigger roles in the musicals to be the star of the show, or you would use it in a way of, Nathan Wright as the performer is now choreographing. Yes, of course, that gave me a bit of leadership because I was known as a performer. Now you've got me thinking of, do I know anyone?
anyway, I can leave that with you.
I'll think about that.
Because it's an interesting question that like I
Because
said, has come up a few times.
All my really good friends in Australia that are choreographing, whether it's X Factor or Britney Spears or Ricky Martin, we're all such great mates, and we all met performing. So it's really, I say, and now we're all off doing our own thing in choreographing in all different places of the world, but we all met on shows. So yeah, I can't think of anyone off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I will think.
Okay, cool. You keep thinking. Nathan, what's one or two pieces of life advice that you've received that sticks with you daily?
I've got two really good ones. I just want to make sure that I say those ones and not others. I think the most important, actually I have one. I have one piece.
Great. Your
path is your path and no one else's. Never compare yourself to someone else's path, because it's not yours, it's theirs. And you'll spend that time focusing on what they're getting, what they're doing, how lucky they are, and you're giving away all that energy that you could actually invest in yourself and following your own path. I think that is the biggest mistake. And I am a huge culprit of it, but I changed my thinking a long time ago. But that is the best advice I have ever been given. Create and follow your own path. Support everyone else's around you, but don't compare yourself to someone else.
I love it, and I think it's so relevant for our industry. I think that's
yourself with absolute jealousy of why are they doing this and that. You can't. You've just got to support people and be happy for them, because when it happens to you, you want them to be happy and supportive to you.
Exactly. I think that, and this has come up so often actually with all of my interviews, is that, it has become harder to kind of not switch off completely, but, to continually see on Facebook, and other social media what everyone else is up to. Yes. Like studio owners say to me, that studio down the road, they're doing that, and that was my idea, and a lot of the time
things on social media.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Monitor your own stuff that you're doing. Focus on you and your business and your students.
My most favorite thing about people that I really admire and idolize are people that just do their own thing. They are so ridiculously successful, but they don't make a thing of it. And they just go along, and you don't really know what they're up to until I catch up with them, or they'll call me, or they'll text me, I'm doing this, and it's just in conversation. Those kind of people I really admire even more, because they don't feel like they have to because it's, I don't know if it's constantly looking for approval, or you're saying to people, look, I'm working, I'm really good, look at me. I just think we do that enough in this industry. We're constantly putting ourselves in front of people saying, please like me. I think there's got to come a point where you have to have a level of appreciation and respect for what you actually are good at, to know that, you know what, I can celebrate that with my friends and my family, and knowing that I've got this coming up, that's great. I don't need to tell the world. If I want to, that's great. But I don't think you should strive for work just so you can put it on social media, because I think it will destroy it.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, do you, I have this, I talk a lot about looking sideways. You seem to be very focused, very, living in the moment of the projects that you're working on at that time. I mean, Is that one of your strategies for success, is not continually kind of looking sideways at what everyone else is doing?
Yes, but that's been the biggest lesson I've learned. And it wasn't until I really started focusing on that did things really change for me. And it is. I am I'm in the moment of every job, whether if I'm doing one job at a time or if I'm juggling 2 or 3, which I try not to do all the time because I find it very hard because I want to give that job everything I've got. I don't want to give something, a bit of my time because I'm focusing on this. I try not to take on anything more that I know is not deliverable because I'm such a perfectionist in everything I do. Everything has to be perfect. So I do. I try not to look sideways. That's a really good way of looking at it. It's hard. Sometimes, of course, you find yourself looking sideways. It's human.
Of course.
But I think if you focus more on, it's okay, just keep looking forward, it does change. It really does change because then you're not giving up all your energy constantly going, but they're doing this. That's great. That's what they're doing. That's their time. That's their opportunity. It's not yours. Keep moving on.
Yeah, I love it. Now, to wrap up the interview, Nathan, that's a great point, but what's one message you'd love to leave specifically for our studio owners? If there was one thing you could say to a studio owner, what would it be?
I think is to teach with absolute honesty, is to guide your students down the correct road regardless of what that road is. I think encouragement, passion, commitment, everything, of course, that comes along with learning dance, that is drilled into all of us growing up. That's at every studio. But I think what makes a difference is people that are actually honest with you when it comes to the point in your life where you're like, can I move forward in this direction? You want someone there that is going to be honest, help you and guide you down the correct path. That to me is so incredible. And whether the students take it or not, that's their choice. Because at the end of the day, you always make your own decision. Doesn't matter how many people you ask for their opinion, you always still make your own decision at the end of the day. But I think in knowing that, I think the best thing you can do is be honest.
I love it. Being authentic, coming from that authentic base and telling it how it is in a supportive way.
Well, there's no point in telling people some things that just aren't true because it gives people false hope. And the one thing you don't want going into this industry is false hope. You want a sense on reality.
Yeah.
You want to know where you stand and where you are in the chain of things. And obviously you'll learn that the more you do, the more you grow. That's great. But you want to go in there with the right tools and have an understanding on reality and not be, all rose-tinted glasses on, having no idea what it's really like out there.
Yeah, exactly. Look, Nathan, it's been an absolute, always love catching up with you. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. Where can people go to get more details about you?
You can go to www.nathanmwright.com, and that has kind of everything you kind of need to know. It's got, my latest show reel, CV, just the basic stuff really of who I am, what I am, and any kind of, like I have social media like Twitter, but it's only about my work. It's not about my life because I think my life is quite boring, but I like that. So so all the stuff about me as a choreographer is there. Anything about Nathan Wright in normal life is not there at all. It's purely who I am as a choreographer.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Nathan.
Thanks for listening to the Studio Success Formula podcast. To take your studio to the next level and beyond, head to studiosuccessformula.com.